The police officer's face went from stern to confused as I handed him the property deed. "So, you're telling me that you own the entire lake?" Officer Rodriguez asked, glancing from the paper to me, then to Karen, whose face was turning an impressive shade of crimson. "Not just the lake," I said calmly. "The surrounding 50 acres, including the beach area where we're standing right now." Karen sputtered, her designer sunglasses sliding down her nose. "That's impossible. I'm the president of the Lakeside Homeowners Association. We control all access to this lake." I smiled, pointed to my name on the deed, and as the small crowd fell silent, I realized I had just dropped a bomb in the middle of what should have been a peaceful lakeside morning. See, I never planned for any of this. 3 months earlier, I was just another Chicago software developer, living in a shoebox apartment with my roommate Tyler, subsisting on coffee and takeout, scrolling through a mountain of emails, when I found one from a lawyer I'd never met. My grandfather, who I hadn't seen since I was a kid, had passed away and, out of nowhere, left me lake property in Georgia. "Like a cabin or something?" Tyler asked, half joking. "I guess," I replied, "but the lawyer wants to meet me in person." I hadn't been back to Georgia since I was 10, when my parents' divorce cut that side of the family out of my life. All I remembered were hazy summer days, fishing off the dock, catching fireflies, the smoky smell of barbecue, and a feeling of belonging I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was just that my job let me work from anywhere, but a week later I was on a flight south, driving a rented car down pine-shadowed roads toward Lake Serenity. I figured I'd get a glimpse of my inheritance, laugh about it, and head home. I was wrong. The lawyer, Mr. Jenkins, was this kind, slow-talking Southern gentleman who handed me a folder thicker than the Chicago phone book. "Your grandfather always spoke fondly of you," he said gently, and there was something in his eyes that made me feel guilty for not keeping in touch. When I finally opened the folder, expecting a deed for a small cabin, my heart just about stopped. "This says I own Lake Serenity and 50 acres around it," I said. "That's correct," Jenkins nodded, his voice so calm I wondered if I'd misread the paperwork. "People live around that lake," I blurted. "There's an entire community." Jenkins explained the family history. My great-grandfather bought the entire property in the 1940s. When development started, my grandfather allowed homes to be built but kept ownership of the water and most of the shoreline. The HOA had usage rights, but the land, the lake, it was all still in my family's name. I drove out to see it, winding through forests and around glimmering blue water dotted with beautiful houses. The caretaker's cottage, where I'd be staying, overlooked a view that belonged in a movie. As I lugged my suitcase inside, an old truck pulled up. Out climbed Frank, a weathered man with a quick, honest handshake. "I helped your grandfather maintain the place," he said, and as we talked, I learned about the community, the lake, and the tension that came with them. Frank warned me, "The HOA's gotten out of hand these days. Karen Wilson runs it like her own kingdom." He wasn't kidding. Every beach had a list of rules longer than my arm. No pets, no late swimming, no fun, basically. It didn't take long to meet Karen. On my 3rd day, I was sitting on the dock when she motored up in a boat, sunglasses glinting, voice sugary sweet, but eyes sharp as knives. "You must be Robert's grandson," she said. "We'd love to welcome you to the community. Just need you to sign the membership agreement and pay the $750 monthly fee." I told her I'd think about it. Her smile didn't budge. "It's not optional. All residents must join." But Jenkins had warned me. My property was exempt, and membership was voluntary for everyone, not mandatory. So I skipped her meeting, and the next morning, Karen was on my porch flanked by her husband, Doug, the HOA treasurer, and Linda, a nervous board member. "You have 1 week to pay your dues, or we'll take action," Karen said, her tone promising a war. From then on, the petty battle started. Notices taped to my door, fines for repairing a public dock, warnings about unauthorized gatherings. I tried to keep my head down, learning the lake's boundaries, talking to residents, hearing stories about my grandfather, about how Karen's rules had driven families away. Mrs. Patel, a sweet elderly neighbor, whispered, "She fined me because my grandkids left towels on the dock. It's not a community anymore. It's her fiefdom." One day I'd had enough. With Jenkins' help, I hand-delivered a letter to Karen's door spelling out the legal facts, my exemption, her overreach, and the original agreements. Then I hosted a lakeside picnic and invited everyone. Nearly 200 people showed up, swapping horror stories, discovering the truth about their rights. When Officer Rodriguez showed up in response to Karen's complaint, she accused me of trespassing on my own property. I handed him the deed. The crowd fell silent. That was the moment everything changed. But Karen wasn't done. The next morning, I woke to a line of trucks and landscaping crews on my property, directed by Karen, just enforcing safety codes. I demanded they leave, but she waved around a forged permit. Only Rodriguez's intervention stopped them from cutting down half my trees. That night, Frank told me about Karen's rise to power, small improvements, then more rules, more fees, until no one could fight back. My grandfather had always been her quiet obstacle, reminding people of their rights. Now that job fell to me. Days passed with uneasy calm, then a new twist. James Everett, a slick developer, introduced himself in town, hinting at a generous offer if I ever wanted to sell. As he walked away, I spotted Karen parked across the street, watching us. That night, someone dumped dozens of dead fish on my dock, an ugly message, topped with an HOA application form. I called Rodriguez, but there were no cameras, no witnesses. Jenkins soon uncovered that Karen had been forging permits, applying for water control rights she didn't have. Developers like Everett had been buying up empty homes around the lake, using shell companies. And the more I dug, the clearer it became. Karen and James were in this together, using the HOA to drive out families, jack up property values, and prep for a massive luxury development. Part of me wanted to sell and walk away. But Frank, and the faces of families who'd made this lake their home for decades, reminded me what was at stake. This wasn't about money. It was about legacy, community, and standing up to bullies who thought no one would fight back. So I fought. Security cameras went up. Legal notices went out. I posted online, warning neighbors, sharing evidence, explaining the real story. The backlash came fast. Karen called an emergency HOA meeting, accused me of trying to destroy the community, even filed a frivolous lawsuit claiming defamation and damages. She brought news crews to my driveway, waved forged sale agreements at the cameras, and riled up neighbors with wild stories about me draining the lake and building a mall. It was chaos, protests, rumors, midnight phone threats, more final offers from Everett. My phone blew up with supportive texts and panicked questions. Are you selling the lake? Will we lose our homes? What's really happening? I pushed back harder. With Jenkins' help, I dug into the paper trail, exposed payments from Everett's company to Doug Wilson. Proof the HOA was on the take. We found dozens of empty homes bought by the same shell corporations, all linked to Everett. I called a town hall meeting, filled the room with maps, documents, and stories from residents who'd been bullied out. Karen tried to shout me down, but the tide had turned. People saw through her lies. Mrs. Patel stood up and called her out. Frank laid out the facts. The room erupted in support. Karen's mask cracked, her anger boiling over. You have no idea what you're up against, she hissed. By tomorrow, you'll wish you'd taken the money. She wasn't bluffing. That night, someone tried to set my house on fire. Gasoline poured around the foundation. Rodriguez and the fire department responded fast, but it shook me. I doubled my security, took refuge at Frank's, and prepared for the next battle. Within days, Karen called a snap vote to ram through her luxury lake enhancement plan, framing it as the only way to save the community after the fire conveniently destroyed the community center and all its records. But this time, people saw through it. Emails flew, support poured in, and at my next community gathering, on the actual public beach, I announced my plan, a conservation trust to permanently protect the lake, accessible for all, no more developer threats. That evening, as the sun set and neighbors gathered by the water, there was music, laughter, hope. But there was also tension, the sense that this wasn't over. As if on cue, police cars appeared, officers demanding the party end. But with my deed in hand, my lawyer on speed dial, and 200 witnesses, they couldn't touch us. For the first time, the community stood together, and Karen's power cracked. What happened next? Well, it's still unfolding. Investigations are ongoing into Karen, Doug, Everett, even some local police who helped with the intimidation. The community center will be rebuilt, this time as a true gathering place. As for me, I'm not leaving. My grandfather's lake isn't for sale, not at any price. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't realize what you're fighting for until you're in the thick of it. Legacy, justice, a place where people can just be. So, let me ask you, where would you draw the line? Would you sell out, or stand your ground when the odds are stacked and the threats are real? Who deserves to control the places we love? Bullies, profiteers, or the people who care enough to stay and fight? Let me know what you think. Who's in the right here? Who gets to decide what justice looks like in a community? Drop your thoughts below. This isn't just my story anymore. It's everyone's.